Welcome to Pitch It To Me Podcast, a show about the subjective past, present, and potential future of Flesh and Blood design. You either owe to drop a Boltyn main, or live long enough to see yourself become a Zen main. Today's episode will be a true potpourri of topics, a smorgasbord if you will. On Red Pitch, Clark will mount evidence against the recent limited formats and their crimes against Classic Constructed. On Yellow Pitch, Fuzzy will talk all about why Flesh and Blood's set rotation is so unique. And on Blue Pitch, our resident Boltyn truther, Joel, will give us his detailed thoughts on the recently revealed Boltyn Armory Deck. You can find us across all socials such as TikTok and Instagram at Pitch It To Me Podcast. At time of recording, in 2 days, there's going to be a ban restricted announcement. So we don't know what's going to be in that announcement, but you, the viewer, surely do. You know, isn't it crazy how they banned / decided not to ban those trading cards?
Man, that stride of reprisal decision is really going to cause waves on Twitter.
That's what you
mean. It doesn't matter which one they do.
Yep.
However they do it, someone's going to yell about it on Twitter.
What do you guys think should be banned, if anything?
I could see the stride of reprisals for Zen, because I think Zen is the boogeyman right now, and I think stride of reprisals is something small. I don't think he needs a big cut. I think LSS is going to be like, we want to do a little bitty bitty banning, so we're going to take your little common foot piece.
I for one want to stop the 50-cent common banning to fix a problem.
Oh, yeah.
And ban a fucking legendary this time around.
Oh,
ban
man.
Traverse.
I think they really hate banning legendaries, though, because people spend money on that. And then when they ban it, it kills all of that value.
I understand.
And that's always been a concern of LSS.
I understand, and I don't give a shit. For the crimes that were committed during the Lexi meta, they should just ban a legendary. I don't care.
Yeah.
I do not care.
I think they should.
Joel, you're giving a peasant during the revolution that's I want to see some heads chopped off. At this point, I don't care who's off with their heads.
Yeah, that's my vibe most of the time on this podcast.
In other news for us, a brand new game store just started supporting Fab in our local area. They sort of got brought into this sort of local conglomerate of different card stores, and as a result, they are supporting the same games that the rest of the conglomerate supports. So they ran their first Fab night. We showed up with 10 people and did a pretty wacky draft apart the Mistveil.
Pain.
Yeah, that was a pretty
But it was so
draft.
worth it to patronize a local shop that offers Flesh and Blood.
Especially a new one. Mm-hmm. Seemed like the owner seems really, really cool. And
shout out to Mr. Crazy.
Yeah, Mr. Crazy himself. Crazy Nick's Games up in Cerritos, California.
Also, shout out to Grim for, creating not only Collector Legion, but Spellhold, and then finally Crazy Nicks.
Yeah, it's been wonderful having so many armories in our local area. Mm-hmm. The fact that I don't have to drive into LA to get an armory every single day out of the week is nice. I'm not going to do an armory every single day of the week, but knowing that the option is there is nice.
In other news, we're not going to talk about it a lot in Turn 0, because I will be later. The Boltyn deck got fully revealed recently. Yeah, those are my thoughts for right now.
Yeah, speaking of, let's talk a bit about what the structure of our episode is going to look like today. We're doing a varied episode with 3 different topics for each pitch.
Yes, our Smorgasbord episodes.
So to give you guys a quick synopsis of our episode today, on Red Pitch, Clark is going to be talking about Limited's impact on constructed play. On Yellow Pitch, I'm going to be talking about the LL system and its substitute for set rotation. On Blue Pitch, Joel's going to be giving you an essay on the Boltyn Armory decks.
Oh, this could be a full video essay. You know how we've talked in the past about how these episodes are each of us thought this could be a whole episode? Joel's is the whole episode.
I don't think I could in good conscience release an episode like this with my name attached to it. Just ruin my reputation.
So let's get on with Red Pitch. Clark, what have you got for us?
Yes. So the title in my notes for Red Pitch is Good Limited Killing Classic Constructed? Which is a bit hyperbolic, I know. But when I look at the past couple sets that have come out, I have felt like a lot of the draft chaff that's in them just aren't showing up in deck lists. While when I look at older sets like Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising, a lot of the draft chaff is showing up in deck lists. I wanted to sort of wonder, why is that happening? So, and this primarily happened when I was building my Victor list, and I realized that I only used 22 cards printed from Dusk Till Dawn or older, which feels like not a lot. That's like barely over a quarter of the deck is cards printed in the past year and change.
So you're talking about like recent heroes. If you're trying to build them, you need older cards, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's becoming more and more apparent. And I think more and more of an accessibility issue. Like, I think when I first looked at this issue, I wasn't thinking about it in terms of accessibility, but it really is starting to become harder and harder, I think, for new players to get into the game when they want to put together a deck and they are finding themselves having to order cards from 2, 3, 4 years ago. Another thing that made me think about this is that at the Armory just last night, which I won on my Victor list, humble brag, but I played against a brand new player who made a new deck, and he had a lot of the stealth cards that were just recently printed, and it's not a great new deck. New really needs like her Command and Conquers and her Leave No Witnesses and her Surgical Extractions. It feels like you can't really make a deck out of a lot of the new cards, and I think that's a little bit of a fail on the point of design, and I think it's because of limited.
I think, just to poke a little bit at your premise here, I think I largely agree that like when you're trying to build a deck with any of the new heroes, you need to rely on the vast card pool that Flesh and Blood is slowly generating, and you have to go deep into its history. But it also depends on what you want out of the game. I think this is also intersecting with the competitive nature of Flesh and Blood, where everyone generally tries to build the same deck, and you always want to be playing the best cards, and there's not a lot of room for players to just build a deck with the newest cards and compete and have fun at an armory, right? Like, yeah, there are a lot of stealth cards in the new set that you can put in your new deck. There's nothing really wrong with them. You absolutely can build a deck like this player you're talking about and have that like fun experience at an armory. But like everyone kind of gives you weird looks, and they're like, no, you need to go back. You need to grab your Leave No Witnesses, your Surgical Extractions. Like, it feels like there's kind of a wrong way to build heroes sometimes.
So I think this is because of limited design. We've been talking a lot about how the limited sets have been feeling incredible this year. And why is that? Like, why do we think limited is so much healthier now?
Well, to an extent, part of it could be like the powering down.
Yep.
Cards in Monarch are really strong. Like, you have these really big above rate attacks with the downside, quote unquote, of Phantasm. So you have really swingy gameplay around power cards.
Or banishing cards from your graveyard, right?
Sure. Like these really big flashy effects. Whereas everything in Part the Mistveil or Bright Lights is a little bit more controlled.
I agree, Fuzzy. I think the big powering down in Limited is one of the great reasons why Limited has started feeling a lot better. Primarily, I would even say in the block values. Like, we have so much more 2-block draft chaff, especially for heroes and classes that normally don't have it. Right? I'm thinking about the amount of 2 blocks that aren't just present in the generic cards, but also the class cards where we normally wouldn't expect them, like Guardian, right? Guardian had a lot of 2 blocks and heavy hitters. Brute had a lot of non-blocks and 2 blocks and heavy hitters. Like, it was definitely a very notable aspect of their design. There's also, in Bright Lights is a little bit of an anomaly because, like, it was the single class set. But I think they power down literally everything, right? They made a very conscious decision for the limited format to not reprint 0 to 60, Zipper Hit, Throttle. Instead, they took all those cards and increased their cost by 1, making them absolutely unplayable in constructed formats. If you want to make a Mechanologist deck, it's one of the cheapest decks you can make, but you probably have to order more of the cards than ever before. Like, you have to be ordering back from Arcane Rising to get your basic good boost cards. Otherwise, your deck is just going to be worse straight up if you try to use bright light cards.
Yeah, the core of the class still remains in past sets.
And it feels like that is consistently an issue, right? I think it's less of an issue with Part the Mistveil because Part the Mistveil has such a focus around its talented design. Because all the heroes need to transcend, they're automatically going to run like 8 to 10 transcend cards, right? So that's taking up a good chunk of their deck, and they have to rely on a lot of new cards for that reason. But I think other heroes that don't have a talent attached to them, they're really not running a ton of new cards. I mean, Joel, maybe you could speak a little bit to like what happened to warrior deck lists after heavy hitters. Were they just building entirely around new cards, or was it mostly old cards with only a couple of new inclusions?
Yeah, I mean, Warrior's been playing the same list for a while now. Like the major includes were like if you're playing dual wield, you play like Blade Flurry, which was really expensive. Take it on the chin. Maybe a few other Majestics, but for the most part, like all of it's like really bad. Like the engagements, the non-attacks pumps that
Wage.
that wage exactly. So a lot of those are like just not used. So it was very like pick and choose what you want to include in your lists. So for the most part, you're still ordering Majestics that were from Welcome to Wraith, Crucible, yeah, maybe some more recent sets, but a lot of it I spent because I only had a Blitz deck for Kasai when Heavy Hitters came out, so I had to pay a lot of money for these cards that were spiking from really old sets.
Yeah. And so I just sort of see that as the draft chaff, right? I'm trying not to focus too much on the Majestics because I think they've done a good job of printing good new Majestics for classes. But it really feels like the chaff, the like core, the basic game plan of all these classes just haven't changed since those early sets and maybe aren't going to. And I think that's a problem, both for the accessibility issue that I mentioned. New players are constantly going to have to be ordering older and older cards, relying more and more on the established player base who did open the product back then. But I think there's also the issue of like, people are going to be opening cards. They're going to buy a box of the new set, and all of that chaff is going to be mostly unplayable. And I think that is a bigger issue, if anything, that the chaff from previous sets are more valuable than the chaff from current sets.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I think the one hero that demonstrates this point the best is Betsy. We talk all the time about how Betsy just doesn't feel like she's doing any of the things that she was actually meant to do. And I think it's because they needed the wage cards to be the hybrids, and they needed them to be 2 blocks. That was a decision entirely made for Limited, but because so much of her core game plan is 2 blocks, in Guardian, she is an unplayable hero in terms of her own specific identity, right? I pretty much only see, it's not even wage gold, right? It's money where your mouth is and bet big and her headpiece. Those are like the 3 cards that actually interact with her hero ability because those are the only 3 where she's actually looking to wager.
R.I.P. Betsy enjoyers.
Yeah. And like Majestic doesn't fix that, right? No Majestic will fix that issue. You have taken away the core concept of the hero and made it not playable in a constructed format since.
Yeah, if you ever want to play a full Betsy wager deck, you're never blocking. You're taking everything to the face because you can't block anything.
Yeah. And that's really unfortunate. I really don't like that is the design pattern that they've gone with.
It's interesting that the most recent set doesn't seem to have this issue as much. Zen plays a lot of cards from
Part the Mistveil.
Part the Mistveil. As a matter of fact, like all 3 heroes kind of do, partially because of the Mystic talent, you know? We were talking about this a little bit before, but like you have these chi cards that were only printed in Part the Mistveil, and you have to use these chi cards in order to use any of their hero abilities. So they really are forced to at least look at some of these commons from their home set. You can like have a pretty good backbone just with the cards in Part the Mistveil.
Yeah, and typically you expect to see maybe 1 or 2 of the like common includes make their way into lists. I think Harmony of the Hunt is played in a lot of Zen lists.
Yeah, I think the Nats winner was running 3 reds.
Yeah. So Harmony of the Hunt you can expect to see, but like you don't see Untamed, you don't see Flex Claws.
Yeah. As soon as Art of War is banned, I'm on full Tiger, baby.
That's the secret shadow ban that's coming up.
But like all the common cheat cards, you know, like I think those should be thought about too, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's another 8 cards that like all Zens are running right now.
Yeah. And then of course like the equipment synergies that they're going to obviously want. So I think it's certainly better with talents. I think this issue becomes a lot less of an issue when they are doing a talent or when they're introducing a new class, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming like Dynasty is kind of like the gold standard if anyone ever wants to build Arachne, or Outsiders if someone wants to build Azuri, right? Like you're always going to want to return to the set where the class was introduced, because I think they're willing to print slightly more powerful cards in those sets.
And like, I know you talked about accessibility already, but I know as a newer player, I'm experiencing like a tiny bit of it now as I'm like trying to play Lorcana, where like Lorcana is very new. It only has like 3 sets that are out right now. So if I want to go back and look through the existing card pool, I only have 3 sets to look at. Whereas with Flesh and Blood, like if I'm trying to introduce new players to the game and they all have to go back to Welcome to Wrath, Arcane Rising, like these classic sets, like I can see how that can be really intimidating to players to have to immediately dive in and know the entire card pool.
Yeah. Especially multiple years out, right? I think that's like the main thing that I'm focusing on here is like, it's not within 1 to 2 years. It's 5 years back.
And you know what? It's getting scarier too, because like if you look at the Metascape right now, I think the only heroes that are performing well from those first 2 sets are Kano and Dash. So like there's 6 other heroes that people are just not incentivized to go seek out.
No, I do also think like Bravo from back then is someone who has been meta relevant for an extremely long time, and this is like one of the first metas I've played in where he's actually properly been forced out of the meta.
Yeah.
But he's always kind of been evergreen, and there will come a meta where I think he will return to his evergreen status.
Definitely. Yeah. I think in time he'll come back for sure.
Yeah.
Before we move on, Clark, I was thinking a lot about that comment you made with Betsy and how a lot of her stuff is hybrid cards. In Outsiders, a lot of the hybrid cards were also 2 blocks, but we had some pretty insane ones like Codexes, that the 3 Majestics were all hybrid and they were 2 block, but they're so extremely powerful, you didn't care that they were 2 blocks. You'd still run them anyways. And then the other notable set of hybrid cards were the Traps as well, which were still 3 blocks. Even though they were 3 blocks, they would still be able to get you like 4 or 5 points of value depending on when you played it and who you played it against. But yeah, it seems like the power level from Outsiders to heavy hitters in terms of hybrid cards have been dropping off in power level, and I wonder why that is, and I wonder if it'll like continue, because if more heroes like Betsy are gonna be like limited all-stars quote unquote, or limited like fail safes, like how many heroes in CC will just be like unplayable because of this?
Yeah. Well, I think they don't want Betsy to be that. I think they want Betsy to get support, and I think they plan on using the expansion slot to do that. I just have the issue of like Majestics aren't going to like sell me on the fantasy of Betsy.
Yeah.
Right? The core of the deck is activating my hero ability over and over and over. That's going to give me what I want out of the hero. Currently, that's just not happening, and I don't think Majestics will fix that issue. You needed the commons and the rares to help do that. I also think that this issue is exacerbated a little bit by a habit of printing the LSS has of foreshadowing heroes and foreshadowing different archetypes. So they did this with Crouching Tigers. What else have they done this with? They did it with
Hyperdriver Mechanologist.
Hyperdriver Mechanologist. A lot of it was in Dynasty, right? Dynasty was just kind of a weird set because so much of it was like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this eventually one day, maybe, sorta? Bye-bye!
Yeah.
So it had like a really low EV, and now like everyone's trying to buy all these cards from Dynasty. But I also think in Outsiders, they had the dagger-oriented hybrid between Assassin Ninja, and like we have yet to really seen the archetype that's going to fully utilize that. I think Graven Call is like kind of a payoff for it, but like the moment that we see a hero ability oriented around it, Like you could have any amount of daggers in your inventory. Something like that. We're finally going to see those cards get more attention. But until then, they're just bad 0 for 3 go again 2 blocks.
And going back to your point, like if we ever do see a dagger hero, we're all going to have to return back to older sets and the card pool. It's again setting that precedent for how we relate to older sets in this card game.
I want to end my pitch with a general question. Will this become a bigger issue as Fab continues to print more cards, or will it become less of an issue as deck building gains more self-expression?
I think it'd be really cool if LSS were relaunching these old sets every once in a while. Welcome to Wrath is supposedly like out of print, like even the unlimited stuff. Same with like Arcane Rising. If the game wants to grow, we're going to need more copies of those older cards. Maybe it'll be like History Pack 2 will be a big refresher to this sort of thing where like lots of people can get access to these older cards, but they'll be in a white border, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, History Pack was definitely something that is designed to fix this problem.
Yeah, for the most part, I think the accessibility of the game is fine. Like the first and second sets of any TCG is also always going to be the strongest because they don't have a power level to like really keep in mind other than what they've done internally. And I think they do a really good job of every hero like being really siloed in their set and with a core design, much to Betsy's demise, but to other heroes' strengths. Mm-hmm. And you're still going to need like ancestral empowerment if your hero cares a lot about on hit, but Zen, who doesn't, will not use it. I think there's a lot of cards that are not in circulation of older sets that newer sets of Flesh and Blood could do a good job of making those utilized. So, if you were hunting these boxes for some reason, then they become a better investment. I personally like going back to older sets and grabbing the same cards and having them be evergreen.
Oh, yeah.
And it also makes my investments now that much better, too, because if I'm investing in generics or just generically good warrior cards, then I'm going to be able to use them for the end of time or for, as long as Fab lasts.
Yeah.
That's true. Like we've talked a lot in Red Pitch about the costs for having really good sets that last a really long time being evergreen in the format, but there's lots of benefits to it too.
Yeah. Of course, the counterpoint to that is that then it only rewards legacy players, right? And new players don't get to make that investment because they weren't around back then. And so they will have to invest in the past rather than in the present where it's probably easier and seemingly more pertinent to before, actually half your chaff is unplayable.
It's a give and take, right?
It is.
And I think it's really interesting how your pitch really flows really nicely into mine. We're kind of talking about the same thing, but in a completely different perspective. Mm-hmm. So if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to take the mic for Yellow Pitch. I'm going to talk all about set rotation and how in Flesh and Blood, we don't have it. We have something else. We have something else instead. So I want to give you a little bit of history and context in the trading card game space. You have some big trading card games, namely Yu-Gi-Oh!, that do not have any set rotation at all. Every card that has been printed in the game, with the exception of things that have been specifically banned or restricted, is legal in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! You have access to the entire history of the trading card game to draw from when you're building a deck.
Wait, you're saying right now I can go and play Karibo in a modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck?
It is illegal, yes. I don't know how well you'll do, but that is a legal thing to take into your deck.
What do you mean? My grandpa's deck has no bad cards.
I know very little about Yu-Gi-Oh's Metascape, but I know Exodia did frag like a relatively big tournament recently. So
well, that's one thing they'll do in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is they'll go and they'll refresh old archetypes, Mm-hmm. Like they'll take these classic cards, even like Blue Eyes White Dragon, and they'll just create new archetypes around those classic cards so you can like see them come back in a new light. They did that recently with Exodia, the Forbidden One, which is a classic. Magic the Gathering does have set rotation, but they also have other formats that allow you to play your cards. So they have their like eternal formats where you can play any card from Magic's history, but you also have standard, which is roughly speaking every set from the last 2 years. And it's generally considered to be like the approachable format, standard, where if you're a new player to the game, you're probably not jumping right into something like modern or legacy or vintage. You're probably hopping into standard because It's a lot easier to get into Standard. It's probably less expensive. All the cards are easy access because there's still sets that are being printed by Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, less expensive until they like print a new dual land that's only good in Standard, so it's $60, and then the moment it rotates out, it like drops at $4.
Yep, been there, done that.
That's the issue with rotating formats. This is why we have the system we have in Flesh and Blood.
Can't relate. Miss me with that.
And set rotation isn't something unique to Magic. In digital trading card games like Hearthstone or Legends of Runeterra, they have set rotation systems. There are also lots of games that don't feature it. Joel, do you know if Digimon has set rotation?
They do not. They have a pretty good ban list. It's like relatively small, and it's really for the like really problematic shit, like the infinite combos that like randomly get jammed in. But for the most part, you're free to do whatever you want. And I think that's largely because they have pretty quick set releases. Like Digimon's unique in the sense that like it's very, like probably more siloed than Flesh and Blood, where you need to run a specific Digimon line. If it gets countered by something, then that deck's probably not going to be playable for like a couple months until the next set comes out or whatever.
It's also relatively new, right?
Digimon, it's been around for 5 years, probably around the same time as Flesh and Blood.
Okay.
Because I know that a big thing with like rotating formats is like with time, a lot of games turn to rotation.
Right. Like with a newer game, there's not as much of a need for it. If you think of Lorcana, the Disney trading card game, that doesn't have any set rotation. Right now, people aren't even talking about it much.
Yeah,
you know?
and there's only like 4 to 5 sets.
Like they haven't even, I think, publicly said whether or not they'll have a set rotation because they don't need to worry about it right now. It's just such a new game. With Flesh and Blood, we saw something from the get-go. They knew that their game was going to be competitively focused. And that's important. One of the nice things about set rotation is that if you see certain cards or strategies over and over again and you're tired of them, you can rest easy knowing that eventually you won't have to play them ever again. In Flesh and Blood, with the Living Legends system, heroes or larger strategies can rotate out of the format, but certain cards don't. Like if you're tired of seeing Sink Below over and over again, well, good luck. For all we know, Sink Below is going to be in the game for the rest of the game's history, you know? Sink Below will never rotate out. Another nice thing about set rotation is that in games like Magic the Gathering, you can always look forward to what the new format is going to have. It's refreshing, right? In Standard, you're always going to be looking to pick up a new strategies. The game is ever evolving. You can look forward to what deck you're going to be building in the future. But that can also be expensive. Players often like the feeling of knowing that when they buy a deck, they're not going to have to buy a new one next year or 2 years down the line.
Yeah. It definitely gives Flesh and Blood, I think, this big selling point. Yes, make one big purchase. Have one big moment where you buy your deck, where you buy a staple, and know that that will be continuously good for a very long time to get your value out of it. We don't have an issue buying a car when we know we're going to use it for like 8 years. We're willing to spend more money on it when we know it's going to last longer.
Exactly, yes. That's like part of the crux as a player when you're talking about the pros and cons of set rotation. I want to take you into the head of a developer for a second. Okay. Let's say you are designing Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh cards, right?
Okay, how do
Can
they
I
work?
kill myself?
No. How do they work? I really want to embody the guy who goes,
I don't know, standing desks?
okay,
Oh, you
okay.
have to have a standing desk.
Definitely has a standing desk.
When you're designing new Yu-Gi-Oh cards or Pokemon cards, in order to convince people to buy them, what are some things that you can do in order to make players do that?
Make the card strong.
That's an easy one, right? You can make the cards stronger than other cards you've seen in the past. So if they want to do well in tournaments, they have to buy the new cards.
Or 47 alt arts.
You can make a bunch of alt arts.
Collectors items. Yes, the Pokemon strategy. Joel getting
You're
into the
welcome.
brain.
You're welcome.
You could also maybe, like, if you have like a favorite Pokemon, you might buy that set if it features your favorite Pokemon, maybe. Or if you had a favorite strategy in Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day, you could be really excited to see it get new support. Maybe.
The League of Legends
Time
strategy.
Wizard.
League of Legends strategy. Just make skins for the hot female champions.
That's true.
Works every time.
Or maybe you could like let's look at Magic for a second. With Magic, you don't necessarily have to print cards that are stronger than the ones that already exist because people are going to play Standard no matter what, right? You can maybe focus on creating a flavorful environment that has people excited to play in that setting, perhaps. Maybe that's why people buy Magic cards.
I know that I am going to play Bloomborough because I am excited about the aesthetics of that set. Like,
Right.
I know nothing about the mechanics. I want to play Redwall in Magic.
Redwall?
Like the book, the novel with the mice.
They're really
Oh.
famous.
Don't care. There's a badger, though. I'm interested in that.
There is a badger, and he's like crushing a skull, and he
Yeah.
has like weird vine green magic. It's nice.
Now there's like 6 badgers I can play in my commander deck.
It's all coming together.
In Flesh and Blood, we have people buying the product as is, right? I don't think LSS is having issue like moving boxes, especially depending on the sets. Like Part the Mystery, I think has done really well. Heavy Hitters has done really well. Maybe because of these alt arts that they're printing, where they have these cool Marvel versions of their cards. I don't think LSS needs a set rotation, if only because what they're doing right now is working for them, financially. You have this bustling competitive scene where people really want to have the best strategies in order to win, yet somehow they've still been able to get people really excited about their product because what they have is a really good game with excellent flavor. They're somehow like having their cake and eating it too, which is what it kind of feels like to me.
They get all the benefits of rotation without a lot of the negatives, right? You see powerful strategies rotate out. You see people stop complaining about certain cards. You see, it's important for community morale, like straight up.
Yeah.
To like just see powerful cards get a break in the meta. Like Prism
no.
and ALS, we had almost a 1 year break from having to deal with that card before she got reprinted in Dusk Till Dawn.
A little bit more because she wasn't all that playable when she first came out, but yeah.
So for about a year and some change, you didn't have to deal with one of the most polarizing cards in the game. But everyone who spent all their money buying cold foil ALSs got to sit on it knowing that they were going to reprint Prism and that card was going to gain its value back and they were going to be able to play with their cards again. Or sell it if they didn't like the design.
Right.
Generally, when you're thinking of rotation, things rotating out of the format generally makes things more approachable, while keeping things non-rotating makes things more investable. Like we were talking about this a little bit in Red Pitch, where because the entire card pool of the game is open to anyone, new players might find that intimidating, whereas longtime players are really happy that the cards that they've had from back in the day are still playable and they get to keep their collection around and then fall back on it when a new hero presents old things in an exciting light. And I think that's the balance. Again, I think Flesh and Blood is at a point right now where neither of those are a problem. The game is properly investable, and the game is pretty approachable, so there's no reason to introduce set rotation now because they are doing really well with what they have. But they do have a little bit of rotation. I know I've been talking for a while. I want to talk a little bit about the system that they do have, knowing that I would probably like to talk more about the Living Legend system on another day. But the one thing that I think is coolest about it is it's the only trading card game I know where the cards that are legal in the format are affected by tournament results and the performance of the players.
Yes.
Like every other game, basically, you can run whatever cards the developer tells you can, They control the ban restricted announcements. They control which sets rotate and win. They control the release order. But with Flesh and Blood, we as the people can actually evaluate the meta, respond with the hero choices we play and the play choices that we make, and it has a huge impact on the legality of heroes. Like when Dromai won that Pro Tour recently, it was off of a top deck that could have easily gone a different way, and then Dorinthia would have gotten another 200 Living Legend points. Like swingy things like that can actually affect the way that we play the game, and I think that's really unique, and it shows how LSS values the player experience and the community involvement. It's like a very community-driven game. Literally, it's baked into the rules, and I just think that's really cool.
It is. It's incredibly cool.
Which is why they've had to tweak their Living Legend point system, because they're trying to design armory decks for heroes that are strong to get heroes into the game. And they had this problem where if the Pro Tour gives 200 freaking Living Legend points, then it's harder for LSS to predict what's going to happen. That community involvement ends up being a problem when they want to design their game based on who's going to be legal later. It's they're removing agency from their own toolkit I think it's really cool and what makes Flesh and Blood special, but it makes a lot of sense to me that they wanted to shift the points around in a way where the same amount of points are being given out, but it's just more predictable.
Yeah, one thing I do like about the Living Legend system is like it gives another facet or another avenue for us to enjoy the game. Like, you know, it's mostly reserved for like the really oppressive decks that will like literally just fucking speed run that shit straight to 1,000. But for the rest of the heroes, it's interesting to talk about. Oh man, there's X amount of Living Legend points left in the season. Do you think this person's going to get LL'd or whatever? And it's a way to like talk about the meta and like really like you can actually plan around like, you know, what to invest in, what heroes to practice on, because it'll open up the meta once a certain oppressive deck leaves. And that part of Flesh and Blood is a thing I really enjoy because it's like very integral to the future of the game. Whereas in other card games, if you bitch about the meta for an hour, there's no indication ever about whether or not the company is going to do something about that card or strategy.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of like complaining into the void. Whereas in Flesh and Blood, we always have that failsafe of this hero will leave eventually. Yeah. And there's very little, if anything, that LSS has to do to correct the game state.
Yeah. All they have to do is win tournaments.
I love the Living Legends system. I think it's super interesting design-wise, and I'd love to talk about it more on a different episode, but I think I'm going to hand the mic over to Joel for Blue Pitch.
All right. I want to talk about the Armory decks as a whole, and then I'm quickly switching the flip and just talking about the Boltyn Armory deck, because I had some thoughts.
Yeah.
So far, we've had KO, Boltyn, and Azalea. Azalea, I think, was spoiled, or leaked, excuse me, a little bit too early, so we knew that that one was showing up shortly after Boltyn. It looks like the KO one was a pretty good success because Savage Sash has made it into every Brute deck since then. And I think Rough Roughshod has made it into both Rhinar and KO lists as well. So pretty good success there. And then Azalea's Armory deck has been looking really good. From what I hear from our Discord, the Riptide and players really enjoy all the aim counter stuff because that's a facet of Ranger that they've really been trying to hone in on. And Azalea obviously gets to play with aim counters as well with like Sandscour Great Bow and with the Dominate with her Quiver or whatever. So there's some good things happening. But then there's the Boltyn deck. And I want to preface this by saying, I really hope that I'm wrong about everything I'm going to say about this Boltyn deck and that it's like really good for the future of the hero.
Sure.
You know, I'll start off by saying like, I know that not all buffs are created equal and I'll be okay with it after this episode. I just want to get some thoughts on the air because like on the off chance that someone from LSS listens to a person that actually plays Boltyn, then this will, you know, hopefully do some good for the world. First, I'll start off by saying like the reason why I had so many expectations for this Boltyn deck is because Boltyn is now a victim of the Hatchet Syndrome, which basically means every warrior is devolved into I'm going to play Hatchets, Valiant Dynamo, and squeeze out as much value every turn and block as much as I can, which is the most mind-numbing way to play any warrior. It's not fun. And that's because his card pool is so bad, you can only do this if you want to do well. And so when the cards were revealed, I was thinking to myself, who is asking for anything but new charge cards? Like, I don't know if they actually listen to any Boltyn player ever, but our card pool is not good. We use almost none of the charge cards from Dusk Till Dawn. The only ones we use are Beam and Bravado. That's it. The rest of them, they don't have enough support with this yellow line Boltyn strategy that they want to incorporate. And also, like the arms piece and legs piece, these do the same things that the bannerets do at Majestic, but worse, because now you have to waste an equipment slot for something that you could have used for more longevity, and it's minus a card from hand instead of using that card offensively and using it as charge fodder. You now have to do another card's worth of value to get a singular courage token or a quicken token, which quickening token is not bad, but still it's like one courage token. Are you kidding me?
It's kind of the idea of like, why do you block with armor? You block with armor to protect yourself to have an offensive turn. But when the card is asking for you to also charge, you are weakening your offensive ability by losing a card from hand.
Exactly. So now you're minus 2 cards for the turn. I also just want to quickly highlight some cards that are stronger than every charge card ever. Emissary of Wind, which is you bottom a card for go again for 4 damage. Strictly better than any card we ever had. We also have Soul Beat Strike, which which is a 0 for 4 on hit, go again. Doesn't charge, but it still gets go again on hit. And it's a 3 block. And then there's Fender Bender, which is another common, and it's a 1 for 4 go again. And it does minus a card, but it has a bonus effect. If you defend with equipment, it gets +1 for every one. That would be sick in Boltyn, or even anything remotely close to this. So I just want to highlight these are commons that are stronger than every charge card we have so far, besides via the Vanguard. And the reason why I say this is because Raiden is supposed to be the mid-range strategy for Boltyn. And like Clark said, if you're using this equipment to defend your offensive turn and you're minusing 1 card for every piece of equipment that you use, or you're already -1 card for defending and then -1 card on your turn for charging. So now you only have 3 cards max to work with.
Because you have to charge to swing with Raiden.
Exactly. So every card that exactly. You're always down 1 card in order to use Raiden. Assuming it's the Quicken token, good. We still keep a soul, but you're still the first
what are
card
you doing
Raiden,
with the go again if you're not swinging with Raiden?
Exactly. So if Raiden, again, if you're supposed to use your armor to block a disruptive on hit and then attack, there's not much you can do with 3 cards that isn't just going to lose you the game on the spot, because now you have no armor to block any further disruption or protect your life total against some of the aggressive decks. So it's just kind of a miss on both fronts. And I did watch the Armory deck, and it looked, when it's on the similar playing field with the KO deck, it looks okay. You're playing just regular Boltyn and then you're cashing it in for maybe an off turn, but then it just feels weird when blocking with your armor automatically means I'm either going to have a weaker turn or I'm going to block with more cards from hand to set up for the following turn. So is there something that I'm missing that you guys think that Raiden is benefiting from with this strategy that I'm just not seeing?
I think you're right that so much of this is an issue in terms of card economy in your hand. In Flesh and Blood, we don't really talk often about card advantage, but Boltyn as a hero is you always joke that he's a 3 intellect hero because you are constantly having to charge to make things happen. I think what they're trying to do with the equipment is focus on giving you more ways to use Boltyn's hero ability. Because really the biggest complaint, the 2 biggest complaints from Boltyn is 1, charge doesn't do enough, right? And I think the other complaint is that if the opponent just doesn't block, what the fuck is Boltyn supposed to do?
Right.
I think this fixes the second issue more than the first issue. The second issue is if they don't block, or if they're able to block with a non-attack action card that blocks for 3, which they keep printing in blue, Boltyn just kind of completely falls apart. But by saying, look, if you block and charge to make a Quicken token, well, there's your go again, right? Or if you block to put a Courage token down, you have the +1, so you can use Boltyn's ability. And it's keeping cards in your soul so that you are able to find ways of giving these pumps in other ways, like with Beaming Bravado. Charge a yellow, give it +1, and now you just have a higher density of cards in your soul earlier, which maybe also allows you to take, if you have an off turn, maybe that's when you're supposed to use these, because they also chose Quicken and Courage instead of Agility and Might. They don't want you necessarily to feel like you have to use this on the next immediate turn cycle. You can let it sit there. So maybe the game plan is to, this is going to be an off turn. Let me make the token and then have an on turn later where I already got the card in soul. Because Boltyn kind of had the Leviah issue of feeling like you had to charge every single turn offensively. But now I don't think you have to, because there's so many more tools to charge on defense and then keep that buff around for later turns. So that maybe it's more defensive and pivot. I just don't know if Boltyn's pivot turns are strong enough.
Yeah, and I agree with pretty much everything you've said, but in this Metascape, I'm going to highlight 2 examples. Number 1, Zen gets a free chi, so he's up 1 card by blocking with his headpiece, and he's up 1 card by blocking with his leg piece. So the power discrepancy there is pretty vast, and it's a little irritating. And 2,
he's able to block and get plus a card, while we have to block and go down a card.
Right. And not only that, but Warrior is a class about blocking and mid-range and relinquishing and taking back the tempo. Charge doesn't do that. None of his attack actions do that. By reducing the amount of armor you have to set up, you're also making the subsequent turn worse. So if I'm playing against Azalea and I use my armor to protect my life total or something and set up for a turn, and then they hit me with red in the ledger, okay, now my turn is completely gone and I have no armor for any recourse. Yeah. And that just makes no sense to me when this class has been battle worn in temper and now it's Blade Rake. You know what I mean?
I think that is a very understandable note to touch on.
Yeah. And I think a good thing that it's Blade Break is because the Sabres combo is something that they've been actively printing cards for us to get away from. Like the charge cards in Dusk Till Dawn where charge a yellow, you get bonuses off of every attack action card that you hit with. And that's just not what combo does. The fact that they're Blade Break and you get like a token that you can bank and charge defensively, like these are cards specifically that will make combo stronger, which is like very, very strange to me.
Yeah, it just lets you build up that soul density that you need to make combo good so much earlier and defensively. Because before, combo had the Leviah problem. I have to keep 2 cards to charge every single turn so I can get towards my win condition. Otherwise, I'm going to fall apart. And now it's like, nah, bro, I'm just going to block and charge and block and charge. And eventually I'll find the moment that I need where I have the hand and I can do the bullshit.
Right. So where does this leave us? Because Clark has mentioned on this podcast a few times power budgeting, and that's not something I've ever really believed in until the Armory decks came about. And it's the idea that, correct me if I'm wrong, but balance is like a vertical point. The rest of the heroes are on a bar graph and their collective card pool gets them higher and higher on the bar graph to that point where they all meet.
Yes.
And so certain cards like, Clark used the example of Blood Rush Bellow and more blue 6s versus the other brutes take up a lot of your power budget. And then they printed Shadow Realm Horror, which like is a really strong majestic that like really thins out some inconsistency with Leviah's playlines. And you have Zen with like Art of War, you have Bonds of Ancestry, and you have Traverse Universe or whatever.
I think like Traverse, and then I would say like Manifestations of Mirror Guy is another great example of like how one card takes up a lot of power budget for a hero, right? With Enigma. Like this one card is just so central to how they win the game. It just clearly takes up so much of the design space. And it's probably why 1,000-Year Reunion and 3 Visits are seen as weaker cards.
Right, because Manifestations exists and takes up all the spotlight, all the power budget. That being said, where is Boltyn's? People have said, I think a few developers have said that Lumen Ascension is really hard to build around or to design around. I personally don't see it because we're the most prone to getting fucked by we're like CNC ruins our day more than pretty much every other hero, I feel like. Because not only are we getting less armor that sticks around for longer, but we're -1 card and sometimes -2 cards with this new equipment series. And so it makes me think they must have the most giga broken cracked cards in the LSS vault somewhere that they're just too afraid to give us. I don't understand it, but for whatever reasons, I am now gonna pay attention much more to power budgeting and just hone my expectations on that because I don't know how we're getting so little support than any other hero.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when I look at Boltyn's evaluation, I'm really looking at the similarity between Boltyn and Brute in the fact that both of them sort of demand an extra card from hand. And what value do they get out of that? So for Boltyn, he gets a card in Soul, which means later, if you're able to pump it, or if they block with an attack action card on the turn that you go down a card, you are able to give anything go again. I think that seems very, very strong. And I think they're thinking about it. For example, in the Armory deck, they have Snatch in there. And I'm like, why the hell is Snatch in a Boltyn deck? And then I went, oh, wait a minute. That seems really good in a Boltyn deck where you can make Quicken and Courage tokens and give Snatch go again and give Snatch a stronger breakpoint. Or like CNC.
Yeah, I mean we've been on Snatch and CNC for the dawn of time, and it's good, it's strong, but you need a lot of pieces to line up and your opponent to basically do nothing or present no disruption for you to do that like freely.
Yeah.
But I definitely get where you're coming from. Like there's a lot of cards in Flesh and Blood that could theoretically be taken advantage of and abused with Boltyn's hero ability, but we're still -1 card every single turn, man. It's ridiculous.
I think one of the maybe dissonant things our listeners might be feeling right now in this conversation is that we're talking about Boltyn both in his place in Classic Constructed and this Armory deck.
Yes.
I think LSS as devs have those two things a little bit more separated in their minds.
Definitely.
But for us, like, what else are we supposed to do other than say, well, what does this give us as enfranchised players?
Exactly. And so I'll say this, at some point I would almost prefer that they don't touch Boltyn at all until they get to a point of, okay, let's nut up and release these cards that make him broken or even A tier, because it's been so long where he just hasn't had any super impactful stuff. Like even Spear of Irina, which I think still has a lot of power budget within Boltyn's kit, is like, whatever. It counters exactly Scowling Fleshbag. That's it? Question mark?
I think it makes Lumina a lot stronger in Raiden strategies because you can combo it with Via the Vanguard.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it. Yeah.
That is true. But again, that's like I have to draw the one of with the three of.
Yeah.
You know? So I've given a lot of critique on why I think this Boltyn deck is such a fail. So now I want to talk about some things that we can salvage from this product release, which I still do appreciate from LSS. Saving Grace, gas card.
Gas card.
Insane.
Second copy of Soul Shield, essentially. Like, insanely good.
Yeah. And the fact that if you block with an equipment piece early, this becomes a 0 for 5. No other text on the card.
That card does look really exciting and fun to play.
Yeah. So like,
as a D-React.
yeah, I think against Zen, this is going to be really, really strong. So I'm really excited to use it. I think this is like one of the best cards that he's gotten in the past couple of years for sure. The headpiece is also really strong for both Raiden and combo because it's finally a way to charge your soul and not be -1 intellect. The filter is going to be so key, especially for, getting your 3rd or 4th soul for the combo game plan, or maybe you have a really wide Via the Vanguard turn and you want to get like a Banneret into your soul and you want to draw a card and not be card negative for
the very next turn.
Right, exactly. I think Solar Plexus will probably see play in like Blitz, maybe a CC if like we're somehow playing Art of War and Tome of Divinity, but tune into Josh Lau's stream on how that goes on Tuesday. But
it's so funny because I feel like Tome of Divinity is not what you would play with Solar Plexus. I feel like you would much rather run Vestige of Soul so that you could just you can block with one of your headpieces that lets you charge, and then pitch the blue to play Tome and go +1 card in hand.
which is why it's a Prism card.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is good things about the Boltyn deck.
True.
Then we have Warpath of Wind Grace, which is like just a strict upgrade to Snapdragon Scalers. Still with a -1 card like we talked about, but there's ways to hedge against that. Ultimately, I think it's really strong, and 2 block on a Snapdragon Scaler is just pretty good. The last thing I'll say about this deck is it gives players access to actually a really decent list. Like it includes both Illumina Ascension and Via the Vanguard, which are like the only power terms we have ever, but they're a lot of fun, and it's what's really addicting about this deck. Like you set up long term for this pop-off turn that can net you like 20 damage, or Lumina that can get you some life pack and like swing the tempo a little bit. So I think it's a really good way to give new players this true Boltyn feeling, and it's not hurting like the secondary market in any way because these cards are already cheap. So I'm a fan of it, to be honest with you.
And it's a full playset of Lumina. That's really nice.
Yeah, they've done a great job of being like full play sets of everything only.
Yeah, this is probably the closest.
Sink Below too.
Yeah,
like I just want to call out like Sink Below. That is picking up the Boltyn starter deck is going to be insane value just for that alone for a new player.
That's basically another Majestic.
Yeah.
So, and I really like this Boltyn list so far because even though it's just KO that is the only one so far that has had a fully revealed list, this Boltyn list is probably the closest it is to an actual CC list that we've had so far. So I really like that too. So it's not that far to just buy a few more cards to complete it.
And you really can see the very clear upgrades, right? Certain legendary equipment that they may want to run, maybe a Soulbound Reserve or a Fine Dolls based on whether they want to go more defensive or aggressive. The Spirit of Irina, the Beacons of Victories, right? Like there are very clear upgrades to this list that you can see players going for.
That's enough of my rambling. Let's move on to the Arsenal Zone, shall we? Fuzzy, you want to explain what the Arsenal Zone is?
It would be my pleasure. Sorry I didn't have much to say about that last section, listeners. I promise I was listening the entire time and was not taking a nap.
We were just really giving Joel his space.
So our Arsenal Zone is the part of the podcast where we all shout out a card that we've been thinking about lately for whatever reason. I also have a small tradition of signing a card that I shout out and giving a copy to each of my other two hosts. So I will be taking draft chaff from recent events.
Let's go! Every single time that we do notes, Fuzzy's like, oh my god, I need an Arsenal card. And he goes and he pulls out his like 3 big boxes of chaff. And then he just starts going through them like an old lady in the file cabinet.
I have something a little bit more targeted today.
Oh.
I recently had the pleasure of going 6-0 in Swiss at the AGE Draft Open.
Yo!
I was playing hotter than I've ever played before, and I made it to top 8. My plan going into the day, I had kind of in the back of my mind this like soft strategy, and you've probably heard this before on the podcast, but I like to take all the blue block 3s because I think they're really underrated. Like when you have a bunch of blue block 3s in your deck, it's hard for you to do badly. Like you are able to block whatever they throw at you, you're able to fund whatever you want to throw at them, and especially in this set, even take a look at the most aggressive hero like Zen, who's my favorite hero to play in the set. He's the strongest in my opinion. He has a weapon that costs 2 resources. So if you want to spend any more than that, and it's a very on-rate weapon too, right? Like spending 2 to get 3 points of value is amazing, especially if you're not losing any cards. So if you can pair that with just 2 other cards that cost things, then you're going to want to have 2 resource cards to play them. And there are a lot of really attractive 2-cost cards that you want to be playing in this set. Key Unleashed is one of them, Fact-Finding Mission, some of the water cards like Spillover. So there's a lot of things that you might want to spend resources on. So having
what card?
It's Blue Breed Anger. Oh. When I have Blue Breed Anger in my deck, I'm really happy with how my draft is going.
Clark is like, Fuzzy, what card?
Well, because every single time I do the video editing, I don't want to put up the card until you say it. So, like, we just have these blank card backs for your, like, 2-minute intro
The viewers
into
can
the card.
also be held in suspense.
I love Breed Anger because it blocks 3 always.
I really liked hearing the casters at the AGE be like, what the fuck is Fuzzy doing? they were much nicer about it, but they were very much like, Blue Breed Anger? That card's garbage!
And I'll take this moment to remind everyone, Fuzzy also did win an RTN to get to his Nats this year.
Yeah.
Based off this strategy.
I just took Blue Block 3s in KO. Blue Block 3s in aggro, that's the strat.
I really do want to call out, like 3-for-7s are also really incredible as a limited rate.
Yeah.
And so, like,
You need
blue
blues to
block
do
3s
that.
make it really easy to do that. I've also noticed that in both heavy hitters and Part the Mistveil, and even I would even say Bright Lights, as the limited format got older and older and people played it more and more, they're just like, just block 3 forehead. So maybe in Rosetta, just take every blue block 3.
But it's going to be an arcane focused set, so you also need blues to
You
block
need
damage.
blues to block damage.
Yeah.
It's even higher rate.
Every blue is a block 3 in Rosetta.
Bro, that's cracked.
1 for you and 1 for you.
Thank you, Fuzzy.
Ooh.
And a new signature.
I was just going to say that.
I took notes. I took criticisms and
No, we can
Suggestions.
Bro, this is good.
Clark, you want to go next?
Sure. I want to talk about the card that helped me go 3 out the armory last night, which is Golden Sun. I love a lot of the not just the flexibility, but like how well Golden Sun plays into so much of what I think is like not just Victor strategy, but is like Guardian strategy. For one, it's a yellow, which is automatically super weird in Guardian. So you're always looking for ways to like find a nice yellow pitch to work. And one of the ways that you do that is that you pitch it with a red to make it a blue. Well, what are some reds that you'd like to see second cycle? You don't want to see it with a 4-for-8, right? Because Golden Sun is going to be your 4 cost finisher.
Sure.
Put it next to a Clash card. so that you can draw your clash card and then clash the Golden Sun, go up 2 on your gold, and then draw the Golden Sun. Like,
Okay.
like there's some really, really, really nice lines where you can pitch stack Golden Sun to make sure that you're getting the gold off of it. But you can only really do that efficiently in second cycle. So it encourages you to pitch it later. And then it's also your evasive finisher. So you want to be pitching it for later in the game. And like, you're going to have to work hard to try to pair it with things like Pummel. And you're going to need lots of cards in hand to make that work. Well, how do you do that? By making gold with your block cards that then let you draw cards. Like, it just encapsulates so much of what Victor is trying to do and what makes him fun and interesting to play. And I really appreciate it. I was able to essentially, I was playing against Han, who was doing pistol dash. Like he did his switchboard and he was playing his very defensive pistol oriented list. He gets 2 plasma purifiers out in the first 2 turns. I think I am donezo. Like, I am not winning this game at all.
Wait, he's got 2 plasma purifiers.
And then I am able to play, visit the Goldmane
Cast
Estate,
homes.
get 6 mites, and then IP penalty myself to make sure that I have Golden Sun, a blue, and my Findall's trigger, so that I can pair the mite with my evasive threat. And then I drew Pummel on top of that. So I was like, God damn, am I good at this game. But I still had to IP my penalty to make sure that my cards were lining up in a way for maximum value, which is how I needed to win that matchup. If I was too focused on like throwing my hammer and blocking damage, or like trying to throw my 4 for 8s, I don't think I would have won that game. It was how well I was able to play around pairing these mite tokens from Visit with my evasive threats like Golden Sun. And also I got 2 trounce and I won the trounce by flipping a Golden Sun. And I was like, 2 gold? Yes, please.
You know the worst part about this, Clark?
Huh.
You can never complain about Guardian ever again.
No, I'll still complain about Guardian when I think Guardian is worth complaining about.
Nope.
You
I
can't
will not
stop
allow
Clark
it.
from complaining.
Well, I'll be there. All right, so for my card, I am going to talk about Banneret of Resilience, which is apparently the only card they thought of when making the Armory deck for Boltyn. So for the people that don't know, Banneret of Resilience is a 0 for 3, and it has Soul Flare. If you charge, your next action card blocks for an additional point of value. And it's yellow, obviously. I was bummed that this card wasn't more usable, because like prior to the Armory deck, the only way you could use it is with Soulbound Resolve, where you charge that and you get extra block value. But now with these new equipment pieces, you can charge any one of those 3 copies on any one of those 3 equipment slots if you're using all of them, and get extra value when you want to be super defensive against like Zen or something. And it makes like the extended arts a lot more usable, which, you know, I think if you're going to play a shitty hero, you should max rarity it. So that's cool. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited to start brewing with Boltyn again, because I've been low-key getting tired of Zen and like whiffing everything and losing games that I should be winning. So yeah, short and sweet Arsenal Zone for me. I'm just really excited to be using this card and playing Boltyn again in the near future.
Tight. Yeah, that's a really cool mention that like they've been able to expand on this design space for like specifically that one card where we saw it and we were scratching our heads. We're like, how do I charge on my opponent's turn?
Soulbound Resolve?
Oh, also it works with Saving Grace too, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and honorable mentions, Banneret of Protection, the one that gives you a spell void, is also really good.
I've started thinking that that's a good sideboard card actually to bring in, especially coming into this arcane oriented set.
I had it versus Dromai. Didn't work, but I had it in there. But yeah.
Well, thanks for podding with me, boys. That was a fun episode, and looking forward to next week.
Yeah, let us know if you want to hear any more about these. The first 2 topics. The third one, I probably got everything out of my system and won't be mentioning it again for fear of bitching too much. But yeah, if you want to hear any more about the first 2 topics, let us know, and we'd be more than happy to expand on them.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know.
Yeah.
We always do discussion threads on the Discord. If you want to talk about the episode, we love to hear what people have to say about it. We like to try to create thought-provoking content where we want to know your reaction to it.
Mm-hmm. So until next time, guys, bye.
So long, farewell.
Pitch It To Me podcast is hosted by Fuzzy Delp, Clark Moore, and Joel Recinos. Executive producer, Talon Stradley. Music by Dillon Hulse. Logo by Han V. Sound mixing, Christopher Moore. And last but not least, you. Thank you for listening. Please give us a follow on your favorite social media platform at Pitch It To Me podcast.
I'm Clark. I'm Joel.
And I'm Fuzzy. No, do it.
I'm Joel. I'm Clark.
You guys are going to specifically confuse the audience. The reason we do this part is to tell people who is who, so they don't, because it's just three voices. You can't screw it. You can't fuck with it.
I'm Fuzzy. Rules of three, baby.
No, you're Clark, you're Joel, and I'm Fuzzy.
Wait, who am I again?
You're Clark.
And who's he?
That's Joel.
And you are?
Fuzzy.
All right, welcome to Pitch It To Me podcast.
You tried your best, Fuzzy.
I think my shadow banning is, fuck it, Lumina.
So anyways, we're actually looking for a new host to take up a vacant spot that just opened up.
Yeah.
If anyone's interested.
We need a third host.
You have to enjoy Lumina.
You have to be a Boltyn trooper.
Completely unrelated.